how controversial am I allowed to be on here?
Completely. I want to
Okay.
talk about everything, yes.
Okay.
Hello, everybody. We're back for another episode with another wonderful friend who we were just talking about before recording. We've followed each other for a very long time, and I'm trying to slowly pick through my list of wonderful people and just people that are doing cool things and helping make the world a better place and sharing awesome stories and just doing all that cool stuff. So, Olivia, spelled in the most interesting way you'll ever see it. Where is that from? That's not like the American spelling, is it? Where is that from?
Yeah, that, from what I'm aware, came about because I was born during the Australian Tennis Open. I was born in Australia. So it was going to be Olympia, but then my mom preferred Olivia, so it's a weird hybrid. It's not from anywhere. It's just like a hybrid of both things.
Amazing. Yeah, it's so funny how like names sometimes have such a complex history. I have no idea where my completely German last name came from. Like I need to do some diving into the rabbit hole of the family tree somewhere to figure that out. But it's
You're not
one so
or
wonderful having you here. I'm really glad we could do this. And I have heard your story before. You've been all over the place. You've been on like Ken Berry's channel. You went on Sean Baker, and you've been on a bunch of other podcasts, sort of sharing your story. So could you give us just a bit of background, just starting on, I guess, the health journey and how that formed into the ballet side of things, and we can just kind of figure it out from there.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, so I started out getting all into health and stuff from very early on. My mom always had, I have an older sister. She always had both of us on kind of a paleo type of diet. So I've always been already kind of exposed into that space of high quality foods, single ingredient foods. You don't have highly processed foods. And I only really more so decided to start searching about it myself when I was 16. I was training professionally in ballet at the time, and I got mono, for a bit of background, when I was 15. And I was quite sick for about 2 weeks, and then it never really fully went away. And then I started to just be all inflamed. And at the time, I thought I was just overweight. So, of course, being in a ballet school, I thought, well, I need to lose the weight. So then I just asked my mom, what's something that I could do fixing my diet or switching it up so that I could lose weight? And she said, well, you can try Atkins diet, or what was known at the time, it was 2018, as keto diet. So then I started to do that. And I think after 2 weeks, a lot of weight dropped off. But what I do remember from that time was because I just made everything that I ate keto friendly. I didn't track anything, but I just ate until I was very full. So this was a lot of high fiber vegetables. So I felt very bloated. I specifically remember that. But yeah, after about 2 weeks of looking at a bunch of different videos on YouTube, I got Sean Baker recommended. And then we started looking into the carnivore diet. And at the time, we were traveling between Prague, Hungary, Czech, Hungary, and Bulgaria. So finding just like pure quality meat wasn't the easiest thing to do. I don't remember why. I think it was just a ridiculous price, or they just didn't even have like grass-fed, grass-finished, or we just couldn't find it. So I was eating a lot of processed meats, and doing carnivore at the time then didn't go so well. This was roughly beginning of 2019 up until around 2021. And that's when things got a lot worse for me. We moved from Bulgaria to Uruguay to then Croatia, kind of all over the place. And in our move to Croatia is when I had this huge acne flare up, and it turned into like some eczema psoriasis thing. And I couldn't get rid of it for almost 2 whole years. I remember talking to some people and being like, yeah, last March I got it. And they were like, yeah, that was a year ago now. And I kept thinking it was like, oh, it's been 2 months. It's not that bad. And it ended up being a really long time. And even though I was still kind of animal based, so it was basically no vegetables, but I would still include some sauces and things, it wasn't helping. And finally, I think it was January of 2022, because it was my birthday, I decided, okay, after my birthday, I'm just going to go hardcore carnivore again and just hope for the best. And that's when everything started to clear up. So yeah.
And those pictures of your face, I'll put them up for the people that are watching. But I saw just this morning Ken Berry like retweeted again. So yeah,
Yeah. I don't know why, but people started retweeting it out of nowhere this morning. I don't know, but
because
okay.
it's awesome. I mean, you never know when people will just like remember it because it's such a great side by side. And when oh my gosh, whenever I see people with acne, and I see them so often now because I do a lot of traveling also. And I'm in Mexico right now, where seed oils are just flowing like water everywhere, and I see so many people with bad acne everywhere. And it's so sad because these people don't know that it starts from the inside, as you learned. If you just fix your diet, your body will stop having a temper tantrum, and it's just going to not have to do all that detoxing work. So super cool. I mean, anyone watching can tell that you look amazing now. So it's super super great. And I know you've also gotten into lots of other things too, like the like skincare, and that's something I definitely like to talk about later when we get into sort of these other things. I know, like me, you've been exploring lots of other things. I'm not focused enough to be like 100% carnivore all the time and like only focus content on that. I'm kind of all over the place, and I know that you are too, especially now that you're sort of shifting away from your identity that you had for so long, this ballerina phase. So I'm excited to talk about that in the future. But could you talk a little bit about the ballet story? So did that start in Uruguay? Is that where you began with that? Because I know that that sort of aligned with the health story as well for many of your young years.
Yeah, so yeah, I started training professionally when we were in Uruguay. We lived in Uruguay for 9 years, and that was the place that I've lived the longest. So that's kind of like my childhood country, I guess. But yeah, the country, unfortunately, it's very humid. So many buildings are just very moldy, and that's where everything kind of began. We lived on an off-grid farm, I think it was 2 miles away. I'm trying to convert it from kilometers, but it was like roughly 2 miles away to a village, so we couldn't see any nearby neighbors or houses. And the village that was 2 miles away was a population of 60. So that was great. But then I started to train in the main city in Montevideo, which was roughly 2.5 hours away. So then I went and I lived alone down there throughout the week. And that's where everything just kind of plummeted for me because I was in a very moldy apartment building, and our ballet school, which we spent almost the whole day there, it was kind of like we lived in that building. It was also completely mold covered. We would sit in the hallways with our backs against a wall and get up, and we'd be covered in like this dust from the mold. So yeah, it wasn't a great situation, and that's where everything just went downhill. But then obviously once I got out of that and moved to Croatia in 2020, I then got exposed to parasites. So then everything didn't clear up as I had hoped it would. If anything, it got kind of worse. And then finally, when we moved out of Croatia to Serbia, um, I would then dedicated the time to yeah, focus on my diet and detox. But yeah, all my ballet stuff began in Uruguay, and then I started to retrain again in Croatia, and then continue it in Serbia.
The mold thing is a huge one that I feel like I haven't gone super deep onto that one, but I do remember for sure when. So, didn't you live in Texas at one point too? You went everywhere.
I
Because,
was in, I was in Austin for about 3 months
okay,
last year. Yeah.
yeah, I lived in Austin for about a year. I think it was almost exactly a year back in 2022, actually. So,
Okay.
pretty close. And I remember I called my dad because he was a home inspector for many years and he knew how to spot things around the house really well. Um, and I moved into this apartment over there, and the floor was like bumpy.
Uh,
And I remember thinking that's a little bit weird. And so I
mhm.
called him. I'm like, "What is this?" He's like, "Oh yeah, that's mold. That's for sure mold."
Uh,
And because and I remember it was like on the lower level, and we were kind of close to a river, so it was just like a moist area, and who knows, what health issues that cause. But I was changing so many things like you. I was really going through this rabbit hole of like, that was the year I also took the seed oils out and started, really going down a diet rabbit hole. But uh, that's another one that people really need to look out for. And there's so many of these things just around us all the time. It's like a game really to try to figure out what is the thing that's causing the problems for you, and what's creating these issues, because there's almost always a fix, a lifestyle change that you can make. But it's hard sometimes. It's really hard. I'm still trying to figure out my stupid allergies. Like that's one of the only things that didn't like noticeably like massively clear up when I went carnivore. Like for me, everything either stayed the same or got better, and
Mhm.
most things got a lot better. But the allergies are my boogeyman, so I'm still sort of battling with that one. And we all have these things that we are dealing with, and you got to just take it as a challenge, you know. And I'm definitely never going to give up. I'm going to keep working on it. And is there any other things that you are still like grappling with today that you haven't been able to fix as well?
Yeah, I would say mainly how controversial am I allowed to be on here?
Completely. I want to
Okay.
talk about everything. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so I would say main thing is obviously you have toxins everywhere. It's a lot. I notice a huge difference moving from Serbia, even though Serbia is pretty heavily toxin loaded due to the bombings that it's had. But moving from that part of the country, that part of the world, so Eastern European countries, which are a lot cleaner, to the U.S. didn't really help my health. I could really notice a big difference, and I'm still dealing with that now. But that's because you have water quality is not great at all. Air quality, so stuff pouring out of the airplanes is not great as well. And
I'm
then,
so happy that got snuck in there because I know I see you following the right pages. I know that you're dialed into this one.
yeah,
We'll bookmark that.
yeah. So I would
I
say
think that
that's
has something to do with my allergies too. By the way, just saying.
yes. I was gonna say that would have something to do with your allergies, so that would be a huge one, and then also whatever metals that you're getting through certain. I'm assuming you're not, but even childhood vaccinations do have certain metals in them, which could cause allergies, as it's known to be a correlation. So I haven't really had that many, so I don't have an issue on that front. For me, it's more of just environmental things, which would be what I'm detoxing from now. Yeah.
And you're in Utah right now, right?
No, I moved from Utah to Oregon. I keep
Oh
moving.
my gosh, it's impossible to keep up with where you are.
I know. I'll be somewhere next month now.
So
Uh,
cool. You're back in my neck of the woods. I was born in Portland and grew up in Seattle, so the Northwest will always be home to me. It's so beautiful there. I
it's,
love that part of the country, and I'm really just motivated to save it from all the problems that are happening there, both politically and otherwise. It's amazing. It should be like a true sanctuary of nature and hiking and just reconnecting with the earth because there's so many great places, even from Seattle. You can just drive like 30 minutes and you're out in the mountains. So it's incredible. Um, really cool. Have you been enjoying it so far?
I have. This is probably one of my favorite places. I made the mistake of living in a not so great part of Utah, but I was able to see some other parts. Utah was also stunning, but here at least it's like you drive 15 minutes ish roughly anywhere. And yeah, you're out in some completely different view. Like you go in one direction, it's desert, in another, there's waterfalls, and another, there's mountain. Yeah, it's stunning. I love it.
It's a wonderful place. I'm really glad that you get to go see it and experience it. And I recommend anyone that's looking for a great road trip, start just, you know, on one tip and go all the way down to the other, just from like Seattle down to, you know, San Diego. That's like the most amazing coastal road trip you'll ever do. So many beautiful views. So you've been going through a lot. We're kind of all over the place here, which is sometimes how I do it. So I love it. Um, we didn't really talk a whole lot about just this whole ballet phase that you went through because this was like your thing for so long on just the interwebs. You were like the carnivore ballet girl, and you're like the one of a kind. No one else really fit that niche. So I thought that was so cool. And you have recently sort of shifted away from that. So can you talk? I want to hear just about this experience of starting with how that played a part in your life as a human and what how you changed from that experience, and then we can get into when shifting away from it what you're looking to do ahead. But let's start with just like what does that do to a person, because that's a very unique activity. I don't know what the data is. I'm assuming it used to be more common, like more girls kind of went into that sort of thing, and now they're not so much. Is that true?
I don't know if it's really changed that much. It might be the same. I'm not really sure because it's really hard to tell like you'll go to some places, like there's these things called summer intensives, which are like 4 weeks long throughout the summer, and that's where you're able to meet a lot of people internationally in the whole ballet space. And I've run into like the same people many different times, so it's relatively small. And this is within like traveling different years to different countries, and you'll run into the same people, or you'll meet someone that knows the same person. So I think it's still really small and pretty niche, but they're trying to make it more well known, but by doing that, they're making it a lot more modernized, which I don't really like. So that's another reason why I partly stopped dancing. Is I really preferred the classical, pure classical Russian ballet, and now just because how everything it is advancing, it's just becoming a lot more modernized, and I
I'm
just
curious now. What is the difference between Russian ballet and modernized ballet? I don't know
um,
anything about ballet. If you didn't know.
yeah. Well, okay. So classical ballet has a bunch of different styles. It's kind of like, let's say you do computer programming or something, and you do Java, or you learn Python script or whatever it is. So it's very similar where you have classical ballet, but it's not just classical ballet. There's different styles of it. So Russian ballet would be like one of the purest, where it's very straightforward and very logical, and you're doing something for a reason every single time. And it's also kind of, I enjoyed it because there's a bit of a like philosophy behind it. The reason why you do something is because your body is aligned in a certain way, and a movement is created because it's creating a certain geometric shape in the space. So that's partly why I also don't always love modern, is because it's breaking that, I guess, like natural geometry that you have created with doing classical ballet versus modern. You're not doing that. So it's like listening to modern music versus original classical music, which is played on at a certain frequency, or it creates a certain frequency, positive frequency for a reason. It's kind of the same thing, but through movement. But yeah, anyway, so that was a whole tangent. But yeah, so you have classical ballet, you have Russian ballet, and then there's a French style, Italian style, and American style. And since moving to the US, they obviously do American style, and I'm not trained in that, and it's a slightly more modernized version. And because it's not based on pure classical, different steps are done in a certain way. Your technique doesn't have to be perfect, but because your technique isn't perfect, you get injured. That's why so many Americans always get injuries. You'll hear all of these different stories of like very well known dancers in the US. They have like 3 knee surgeries, some tendon surgery. That's all avoided if you do it properly. So, yeah, that's why I kind of slowly moved out of it, because they don't really do classical Russian ballet here in the US, and I would rather not switch my style.
I think this is actually an amazing transition into something I knew we were going to get to eventually, which is your one of your monikers you have on your socials, which is Bring Back Beauty. And as you're telling me about these things, I can't help but just see a correlation with so many other art forms, like whether it's architecture or painting or just, the color of the buildings around you. Everything right now that we're looking at, we're seeing things turn into like less colorful, more boxy, less. I'm in Mexico right now. I've been traveling around, and there, all the coolest things everywhere, all the coolest architecture is hundreds to thousands of years old. Why is that? Why are we getting worse at this? And I don't know if you would call it like worse, moving away from that sort of classical version to this more Slavic. I mean, do you think it's just losing its artisticness?
Well, this goes down a whole other conspiracy theory rabbit hole thing, but my whole thing
Please
is,
do. Every conspiracy theory is welcome here. I love it.
we haven't built any of these old buildings in any form of recent time. There's no documentation, so I don't know if we even have the capabilities to do that. I don't know if we ever even built those. So that would be one thing. But yeah, I completely agree. Most art forms are just completely dying. At one point, I think I was 17, I thought I was terrible at ballet, so I wanted to do something that was also creative, and that was architecture. And I love the old style, so I started studying that just on my own for fun. And then I realized that, yeah, everything is a box now, so then I just dropped that because I thought, yeah, this is pointless. But yeah, all art form is just turning into like the most basic, boring nothing. I think it was on Twitter. like a month ago, maybe. Some artist sold an empty box. It was just a glass box. And he said there was an invisible sculpture in there, and some idiot bought it. Yeah.
It's about as valuable as an NFT.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And no one,
There's
yeah.
so many examples of these just stupid things being, pushed into our faces as like the new modern art. And
Hmm.
I have an answer for this personally. I'm not sure how how similar yours will be or different. I think I know why art is getting worse.
Okay.
What would you say is your theory for why we are on this track for art getting stupider?
Well, my theory would be no one is everyone is not trying to offend someone. So because everyone is equal, and everyone can be good or anyone can do whatever they want, obviously that brings everything to the lowest level possible. It's like if you got a participation award or something. So because everyone can achieve anything, obviously it's going to plummet to the lowest level. So if I took a paintbrush and just went like that on a canvas, that should be amazing because I can paint too, even though I might not be able to. So that would be my theory as to why everything is just terrible is no one has a motivation because they know that they don't have to, so why should they? And everyone is not trying to offend anyone, which is kind of ridiculous. That's how we progress. So yeah, that's kind of my theory.
So what I would throw at you here, and I'm curious, I have no idea how much you've researched Bitcoin or been in the Bitcoin rabbit hole at all, just like the money itself in a society. This
Oh,
is where my theory would come in. And there's a book that I would recommend to you and everyone else listening called The Bitcoin Standard. It's probably my most recommended book on here. You've probably heard of it.
yep.
It actually has a chapter specifically on the deterioration of art. How back when people were holding money that they could save for the long term and you had gold, where if you have a gold coin as a child, if you hold that your whole life and you pass it on to your children, it's worth more. So just that's called deflationary money, where the money actually gains value over time because it can't be printed. It had like a very sturdy cap to it. So you actually gained a little bit of wealth just by being frugal and saving. And so artists actually had a way to think long term a bit more versus today where everyone's money is just melting away and being printed into nothing by inflation. Everyone is sort of put on this hamster wheel of needing to work more and be able to put food in their mouth and feed their families. So people aren't even having families anymore because it's so hard to afford these things. And then humans don't have this ability to even rise to that higher level of consciousness anymore of tapping into that artistic side. And to me, as soon as you start framing it in, thinking about how people's brains change over time based on, how comfortable they are in a certain societal paradigm, it's never been worse than right now because everyone's money is inflating away. And we look at places like Venezuela, which is like the most extreme example of hyperinflation, where there's just money on the street. It's just garbage to them because it's been printed so much that it's worth nothing and they aren't able to save at all. I believe every single country on earth is heading that same direction. And even the US, which we think that we're safe from these sorts of things, it's still happening. And this is why everyone I know that I grew up with pretty much is in some form of struggle, from paycheck to paycheck to working a great job, but they're still like kicking the can on starting a family because they can't afford it. And I think that's a big reason why art has deteriorated as well. Because when in a world where we can't think ahead and think big and think large, oh my gosh, I need to talk about this. This is I'll throw one last thing in here. I went to this crazy uh, place in the woods. So I'm in a place called Chiapas, Mexico, right now, and the host at the hostel I'm staying at, I'm at the co-working hostel. He knows this ancient civilization like outpost out in the woods, and it's not very well known, but it's like this old Mayan village that was like abandoned from God knows how many thousands of years old this thing is. I walked around this place and you can see just like rock formations shaped like skulls, and it's a giant cave full of all sorts of different rooms. And I mean, at some point I need to go through all my pictures. I was just snapping so many pictures of this place, but if you just look back in history, everyone was just making bigger, cooler, crazier, more impressive things. And it's just, I don't know where I'm going with this, but I just, this is something more people need to think about, isn't it? How do we
Yeah.
get back to that?
Yeah, I mean, you're bringing up a great point of, yeah, since everyone is more so worried about, well, I don't have enough money, even if I'm working a great job or something, to just do the basics of life, then why in the world am I going to put extra money aside to create beauty because we don't have the time or the resources to do it? So yeah, that would be the base foundation cause of why it's going away.
If you had to come up with some steps, some takeaways for people who, I know this is a tough one, um, things that people can do to start bringing beauty back into their own life. It may be different for men and women. I'm not sure what you would think there, but what are, it could also just be like a mindset that people should be tried to adopt. What do you think people should start doing in order to get in that direction of bringing beauty back into their own life and into the world as well?
Um, I would honestly say this is a big thing that I've noticed between Americans and Europeans, not necessarily anywhere else, is Europeans will put a ridiculous amount of effort into how they present themselves, even if they're just walking down the street to throw away their garbage. They'll have a full on coordinated outfit that's nice. They'll make themselves presentable versus for the most part, I noticed it a lot more when I was in Austin, not so much in Utah and not quite as much here, but people will just go out in leggings and a t-shirt regardless of where they're going. And so I think just starting with yourself, even it doesn't have to be something ridiculous, but just going back to like a very basic appearing presentable, not presentable, but like slightly more than presentable. Like if you look at old pictures or videos of Americans, they were always looking very nice. They made a point of getting ready, not to a ridiculous point, but where they were just enhancing themselves naturally to look nicer. And I would honestly say that's probably the first thing. And then the second thing would be you do the exact same thing with, you start with your room or your office, and then you do, next step would be your whole house. And then after that, yeah, I don't know, but that your yard, but just to like enhance stuff so that at least the area around you is starting to look pretty, and then that doesn't have to be financially burdening.
I know that you follow Michaela Peterson and probably Jordan Peterson too, but one of the things that he says is like always start your day with just making your own bed and having your own self figured out. And I think that's a good analogy there of just focusing on yourself first. And I'm really glad you bring this up because this is I personally I know this is a big weakness of myself is that I'm very lazy with my clothes. I love just throwing on a basic t-shirt or even one of those cut off shirts. Like it's just so easy. It's like I get so much airflow. I'm like, this is the most comfortable thing. Just throw on some shorts and it's the most comfortable. And I always pick the comfortable option, the easy option. But I think you're exactly right. We need more people just when you dress well and you look good and you're presentable, you just feel better too.
Mhm.
You just
Yeah.
feel more inspired to be a better person. So I'm glad you brought that up because I need to upgrade my wardrobe here. I'm traveling a lot right now, so it's tough. Like the it's, but yeah, once I get back, I think that'd be a great thing for people to do. Give me some fashion tips. What do I need to get in my closet when I start buying nice clothes to look like an actually well presented man and not just a degenerate in my shorts and cheap shirts everywhere.
I think the easiest thing, and this could work for traveling. I don't. It just depends on where you'd be traveling to. If it changes a lot, but just looking into like capsule wardrobes. I know men don't use Pinterest a lot, but I love Pinterest for these
I don't
things.
know any that do.
Okay, exactly.
What does capsule mean? I don't know what that is.
Yeah, capsule wardrobe means, for example, this shirt that I'm wearing, I could style it in probably 10 different outfits with a skirt that's black and plain with three different types of pants. So it's just like you have your 10 basics, and with those 10 things, you're able to make like 100 different combos. So it's very basic. It doesn't have to be over the top of trying to figure out something. You just have the 10 nice pieces, and then using those 10 pieces, you just mix them up all the time and try and be creative. That's it.
That's a great point, and that's one of the things I actually did do for
Okay.
this trip. And I got a lot more white and black t-shirts, and I got 3 pairs of pants, black, khaki colored, and denim.
Yeah.
And it's from this actually amazing brand in, I don't know if they're Austin based. It's like Mugs or Bugsy. I can't remember what it was, but they're like really stretchy and comfortable. And
Okay.
so that is something that I definitely would agree. Just having things that fit with everything, and
Yeah.
just having like some basic colors that you can throw together and are like really versatile. Definitely a good one. The only problem, and this is funny, I have found one of the only problems with the carnivore diet ever, and I will finally start mentioning this, is that when I spill a little, like if you get one little like spill, it's over.
Yep.
I have
Yep.
had, I have multiple shirts now in my room which have a tiny little annoying drop somewhere on it, or multiple from just when I'm just devouring a steak too cavemanly and just like get it all over myself. And I haven't figured out. Do you know any tricks for getting like animal fats out of clothing?
No, I do not. It's funny because before this, I had this blue shirt that I was gonna wear, and I put it on, and then I looked at myself and I realized, oh, there's some grease.
I have a blue one too. Everyone, all the
Yeah,
carnivores understand this. It is the
yeah.
downside. I see.
Well,
This is a good reason to just like always eat naked. I think is the takeaway here.
sure that. Or there's this company called Truly Free, which does like all sorts of natural cleaning products. I did get their stuff, but I haven't tested it yet. So if it does take out grease, I'll update you on that. But
Yes, please. I
other,
have like I think 3 or 4 shirts in my bag right now that have a little dot somewhere on it, and I'm just like, what do I do with this? Because I worked so hard, and this is a good transition actually on just clothing quality from a health
yeah.
standpoint. Is last time I was home, so I usually take about 2 visits back home in the Northwest per year. I'm like a full nomad right now. I'm floating all over the place, but so on my last trip there, I went shopping for a day specifically to make sure I was getting all 100% organic cotton shirts,
Mhm.
because that was one of the things I learned from people like you. Maybe you're one of the people that even convinced me to start looking for the polyester in my clothing, and I found that a lot of the things I had did have this, which is just recycled plastic, which you should not have on your body.
No.
So I went shopping for all these shirts, and that's why I have quite a few new shirts. Why don't you give us an overview on these different materials and fabrics? Because I know that you make a lot of your own clothing, which is
Yes.
something super cool that you share a lot. So maybe give us a rundown on these different materials that are out there, what people should be looking for.
Yeah, I actually just went clothing shopping yesterday, and then I gave up and just bought the cloths myself. But it's typically what happens. I'll find something that looks really nice, and then I'll look at the tag or the description, and then it says like only 20% cotton or whatever it is, and then I just get frustrated and think whatever, I'll figure out how to do it myself. But what they should be looking for, at least for some more mainstream brands, like yesterday I was at Banana Republic, and I was looking for 100% cotton jeans because I didn't want to make jeans because that's a bit trickier. Most of the time you have to look at the tag, the white tag that's going to be either at the bottom or kind of near the top, and then check that it says either 99% cotton or 99 or 100% cotton. Most of the time it's going to be 99 or 98, and then they'll have like 1 or 2% spandex just as a tiny bit stretchy. To me, that's fine because it's just 2%. It's not going to, you're not going to die from that. When it is an issue, and I haven't found an alternative yet, is for workout clothing. Just because cotton, it'll kind of hold on to sweat stains, so that's not great, obviously. So that's the only thing I don't know of. But if, yeah, any form of clothing that you're looking for, the tag should say as much as possible 70, 80, 90% linen, cotton, what else? It's not coming to me right now. Wool, cashmere, anything that's just purely natural. I think even hemp is okay. There's not a lot of clothing made from that though, but yeah, those would be, yeah, as close as to 100% as possible.
And I would say similar to diet, like if you can't do 100% perfect, just do the best that you can. Just get the highest percentage you can of those. you can usually find 100% cotton. You just have to look around a little bit. Even
Yeah.
at the big main stores. I went to Fred Meyer and they had a rack of just all cotton, so I just did all my shopping right there, and it worked. There are other brands online, and I haven't really usually been one to shop online for clothes. I'm always scared that it won't fit me and it'll just be a big waste of time. But I got the Regenaissance shorts. That's another guy, Ryan Griggs, I think his name. He has a cool little clothing company he does, and they fit amazingly. And I feel like I can use them for anything. So it's worth going online and looking around for these if you can't find any stores around you. Um, it's a good way to upgrade your health in a way that you may not have thought of before, because there so many people are not thinking about this. And maybe you could give a little information on some of the worst offenders out there. I know that the yoga pants that most women are wearing are terrible. Can you tell me a little bit about that, and like maybe why you would not use that and look for something different?
Yeah. So what I've been doing is I mostly have been working out at home. So yeah, I'll wear the Regenaissance shorts because I can. It's getting cooler, so I won't be able to soon. But yeah, I used to wear the skin tight, both leotard and tights, and that's all viscose, lycra, and whatever other basically plastic. It's nylon fabrics. And what's happening is we have this whole thing where we're told that most people on average consume like a whole credit card worth of microplastics per week. But that's just thinking about, okay, your
Terrifying.
food. Yeah, it's horrific. But that's just thinking about it from a food aspect. Then you have to take into account, okay, whatever else is being sprayed through the sky, your water, if you can't filter that out, the clothing that you're wearing, how your food is actually getting packaged is another one. So taking into account that it's not just coming from one aspect, it's coming from basically everywhere and in everything, it makes a huge difference. So although it might seem kind of ridiculous to just change your shirt, even though it's just touching your skin or something, when you sweat, especially with the sports clothes, your pores are open, so it's gonna obviously take in all those different toxins more so than it would if you were wearing it while you weren't exercising or sweating or whatever. So that's why specifically for like yoga pants or leggings or something, I would not wear them.
And this idea of our skin being a sponge is one that I'm always trying to beat into people's heads, because a lot of people don't get that. Was posting about sunscreen yesterday, and you do a lot about skincare, and I think that would be another one we could sort of transition into, which I know you spent a lot of time learning. I would love to rack your brain on that. Just how horrible, especially for women, like they're brought up in this paradigm of just putting so many toxic chemicals all over yourself, and that's just so normalized. Even just a couple nights ago, I was sitting like 20 feet away from this girl who was like, I think doing nail polish remover or something, and I was getting gassed out. I couldn't even like stand. I had to leave the room, and so many women are just like doing that all the time, and just they aren't thinking what damage they're doing to themselves from these smells that their body should be telling them that this is not a good thing to be around. And there's often their skin is showing it just through like having really bad skin or other issues. But could you give me a crash course on what you've learned about skincare, and we can maybe take it from there and on that sort of realm? Because I had Charles Mayfield on recently, who does Pharaoh Skincare, and I know that's one of the good ones. We have these new brands coming out, and these new. I think you do some like homemade stuff as well. Just a whole rabbit hole. So give me the rundown on that one. What are the basics that people should know about?
Basics should be basically don't bother buying anything in any beauty store for skincare because it's not going to do you any good. And the same goes for makeup. I haven't found a good enough alternative that I would recommend. Everything that's like natural or organic or supposedly toxin free still will have something that I don't necessarily want, and that would include like sunflower something, not necessarily straight up a seed oil, but very close to it. So why, if I am not ingesting that, why would I put that on my skin where I'm basically ingesting it anyways? So that's the one thing that I am not sure what the solution is to yet. But for skincare, honestly, water, the best, if you wear makeup, the best makeup remover is just oil of any kind, so preferably coconut oil because that actually works better than tallow to remove makeup. If it's mixed with tallow, that's great as well. So you would just kind of like rub that on your face and that removes all toxins after like a minute or two. Um, if you want to wash your face, the actual best face wash is milk. I found just because
Really
the
interesting.
yeah,
I
you think about it. Okay, so ancient Egyptians they used to bathe in milk all the time. You wonder why? I think it was there's a certain.
didn't know that. That's
Oh,
interesting.
really? Okay. What I
No,
was okay. Well, you'll learn something new every day. Yeah, they used to take milk baths. I think it was just, like Cleopatra's big thing was known for taking these ridiculous milk baths. But yeah. So what I did was because milk is kind of awkward to just kind of like pour over your face, it just comes right off. So it's kind of a waste. What I did was I got freeze dried milk powder and then I mix it with a tiny bit of water so that it's kind of like an exfoliant, and then you would just rub it on your face like a face wash or a face scrub. That would be if you do want to wash off anything. So if you went to the gym and were outside and were exposed to dust and whatnot, that would probably be your go-to. If not, then I would recommend using most tallow cleansers. You would just have to make sure the company just doesn't include something. So that'd be just reading the labels. As long as it's just pure tallow, olive oil, castor oil, coconut oil, and then essential oils, should be fine. Um, you can't find really anything in most stores nowadays that would be okay to put on your skin. Just because if you're putting it on your skin and you can't eat it, then don't wear it or don't use it.
love that rule because it literally just goes straight through your pores into your bloodstream.
Yeah.
Like this, these things do not disappear into the ether when you put them on your skin. They get absorbed into you and they become part of you. So you that's exactly it. If I wouldn't eat it, I don't put it on my skin. Period. Just as a starting place for people wondering on just like a kickstart, would you be willing to share like what your routine is, your skincare routine, that people can just try out for themselves to see if it shows benefits?
Yeah. Yeah, in the morning, I just wash my face either with water or there's this company that's called Givaderm, which is a take on like Give a Damn or something. And they use a lot they use a lot of just purely natural ingredients. So I'll use their face wash sometimes because I still have it and it's actually lasted me over a year now. So I'll use that and then just put on tallow cream if it's particularly dry. If not, then I don't bother to. And then at nighttime, you could just use the same tallow cream that you're using in the morning or during the day. You just rub it in your hand so it becomes more like a liquid, and then you can use that to wash off any impurities at nighttime, and that's it.
Yeah, it should just be simple. And like we talked about earlier, you shouldn't need to have this super complicated routine if you have your diet and your health sorted out. Your skin is going to show that goodness. And that was one of the things that cleared up very quickly for me when I did carnivore was I didn't have bad acne. I had so using your picture sort of reference, your before picture where your acne was quite bad. I was similar to that when I was much younger. I did an Accutane, like most people are sort of angled into at that age. And for me, it actually worked. I know a lot of people have like horror stories about using Accutane, but for me, it worked relatively well. And then after that, in going into my 20s, I just had a little bit of acne. Like they would sort of pop up here and there. I had them on my arms. It just like a little bit of an annoyance, but it wasn't a huge issue. And it completely went away with carnivore. So, I mean, and I don't put anything on my face now. I don't know like how you would grade this face, but I mean I'm happy with it. it
Yeah.
I know if I had to or if I wanted to put something else on it, it would just be either tallow or lard or one of these really basic. I've never heard of milk. That's an interesting one. Here's another interesting one. How about eggs? I guess that's more for hair. People, have you seen those videos of, the health bros who just continue to be like pretty much right about these things? They're way better than the actual dermatologist. They're cracking eggs over their hair and sort of like moving it around their scalp before a shower. And that's apparently supposed to give you lots of vitamins, be really good for your hair follicles, and help thicken your hair. Is there some truth to that? Have you looked into this?
Yeah, I've looked into it. I wouldn't do it. I've seen a lot of people use it in place of shampoo. I wouldn't necessarily do that just because growing up on an off-grid farm, if the water was on for slightly too long, like if you turned around for a second, it was a waste of water. So to me, it's like a waste. It's just it's in me, ingrained in me, not to waste anything. So to me, that would be like a waste of food or a waste of an egg. So I wouldn't do that unless I did it like once a week or every other week as like a hair mask. But yes, that would be a lot better than if you were to just use normal shampoo or something. There's biotin in there, which is obviously good for your hair growth. It's got a lot of vitamins, which would help with hair growth. But there's a lot of other things that you can do instead of that for hair growth if you don't want to crack a raw egg on your head.
Yeah, I haven't used regular shampoo in over a year either. I can't remember who it was. I think it was Mia. Her name's Mia. She's like another sort of account on Instagram, Mia K Pro, I think.
Oh, yeah.
She shared her little potion that she makes for hair, which is just apple cider vinegar and water.
Mhm.
And so I just started using that and trying that out, and it's worked great. Like your hair is maybe a tiny bit like more greasy than normal. I'm not sure if you can like see it here. It's like it's fine, you know. I mean, if I was like maybe gonna go out for like some super fancy dinner, maybe you could do something a little more intense. But for the most part, I mean, just like putting on like a super thick makeup maybe makes you look a certain way for a certain event. It shouldn't be normal. I guess like everyday thing,
Yeah.
but yeah, so many cool things to explore and just like try out and experiment. This is one of the things that I love about your content is you're just sharing videos of you doing all these things and trying all these things. And now that you have sort of moved on from the intensive ballet schedule, you have more time to explore a little bit. So I think I brought that up earlier, but we never really fully answered it. So just looking ahead for you now, this could maybe be a good sort of way to sort of start wrapping things up and just talking about like what is your goal now for the future that you have so much more time and energy and openness to explore these new things, and you have a little bit of a social media audience. What are you thinking?
I don't know. I was actually thinking about that last week. I don't have a ton of free time because I actually I'm working kind of in tech, but my whole goal from once I started noticing huge results within my health just through like basic modalities, which are very alternative, was I saw so many of my classmates and then people I knew were just kind of stuck, and I felt that way even though I was exposed to the alternative medicine, just because there's no like good place to go to that tells you step by step with like factual evidence that yes, this works, do exactly this, and it's not like you have to dedicate years of time trying to find everything. So luckily now I'm able to work in that realm of just trying to experiment, find what works, and then okay, push it out. This is what works, and this is why. So it's kind of just exposing people to that, and then I guess my social media is more of just I'm doing a bunch of different things. Here's what I'm doing, and here's how you could do it too. It's kind of where it's at right now.
And I think that's great because it's a good way to just show your own adventure. And I think that certain people really need that just visual walkthrough of someone else doing these things. And especially I think for women, they sort of need to see another woman doing it. Like if I were to go on Instagram and talk about women, this is why makeup sucks and you need to do this instead, like they're not really going to resonate with it. But you just come on and say, hey guys, I'm trying this new thing, it's working really well. It just connects to that audience better, and we need more of that out there, more people giving this good holistic advice. Well, I don't even know if advice is the right word, but just like showing what you're doing that's working. And
Yeah,
it
or
has to be a lot of fun and fulfillment for you as well as you're doing that, right?
yeah, I mean, like even just like basic things like last year when I was doing ballet, I was competing and I loved to sew, so I was like, I'll just make my costume because it's a ridiculous it's a ridiculous price to buy one, and I like sewing anyways, and it wasn't too big of a deal to try and figure it out. So I think part of it that I wanted to like part of my goal is just okay, some ideas might seem ridiculous and impossible to achieve, but maybe because someone else has tried doing it, maybe it's worthwhile to try and do yourself. Like you don't necessarily have to like my ballet costume that I made. If I bought it, it'd probably be like $3,000, $4,000. I decided to go and make it. It probably cost me like 80.
Yeah, we haven't
So
even mentioned the money saving side. Like, if you can save so much money doing, like, you're saving money, you're learning a cool new skill, and these skills could be very useful anytime in the future. We never know. And this is where these conversations can sometimes get dark. Like, we don't know when all these supply chains where we're just right now getting all these things we want everywhere all the time. Things may not always be that way. If things go in a dark direction, that, some of us crazy Bitcoiner conspiracy theorists are trying to map out the future and see ahead a little bit. There's going to be some weirdness, is what we know for sure. And being able to create these things yourself, whether it's like you talked about, the farm stuff, like being able to have grow your own food, have like good quality water, and be able to make your own clothes. I mean, if you can do those three things, you're in a really good spot. So,
yeah, yeah, I think yeah, part of it is just okay. Um, what can I do by myself where I don't have to like? I guess you could apply the same thing to like any company is what can we do where I don't have to outsource it? So then later down the line, it's beneficial obviously to you if something ever happens. You're just like, oh, well, I could already do that anyway, so I don't have to rely on someone. So yeah, very self sufficient in life skills that you might never need or is good to know anyways. So yeah.
are there any other skills that you've been thinking about that you really want to get better at or learn in the future?
Well, I started learning a tiny bit of coding, but I don't know how useful that is, so I don't know if I'll bother to pursue that. Um, yeah, fermenting. I'm starting to ferment a lot more, fermenting foods. I can cook, but I need to learn how to actually ferment stuff, so that. Um, yeah, as of right now, that's kind of my main focus.
I love it. And I guess this is another thing that I would love to just throw at you here is you are a wonderful encapsulation of this trend of more women coming on social media and just sharing these more traditionally feminine values. And this is becoming a thing that's popping up more and more everywhere. And of course, there's always going to be controversy around these sorts of things, which is kind of wild to me. Um,
Yeah.
why do you think it's so controversial to go on social media wearing a dress and making food, and women will like come after you for this? How does this happen from your side of things? What do you see?
I think that's more so just an American view that's getting slowly seeped into other parts of the world. Like when I was in Croatia and Serbia, it's completely and totally normal for women to just like spend a good chunk of their morning or day just getting together to look nice or presentable and then just go spend the rest of the day cooking or sewing or just doing basic household things. That's normal. That's completely normal. Versus here in the US, if you do that, it's just like, oh, that's odd. Because I guess to some extent, obviously through social engineering and whatnot, women feel like they have to they don't feel as I guess like accepted, so they have to do something that's worthwhile that makes them worth something when they don't need to like they don't need to be a CEO of a company or do something because that's most of the time not what they're meant to do anyways, but because they're used to that mindset going back to this other thing of just yeah, I'm just a housewife or I just do housework. It seems kind of like, oh, you do whatever that the maid can do for $15 an hour or something, but it's a lot more than that. So I think just because that's socially how it is here, that's why it seems kind of out of the norm. That's my whole view on it, just because I haven't really lived in the US, so that's what it looks like from an outsider's perspective. But yeah.
And this is a great opportunity to sort of tie back something we talked about earlier too, just the bringing back beauty and building a more prosperous future where there's more just things that mesh well, like getting back to our roots as humans. Do you think about that as you're creating this sort of, like, the word is like trad wife is what people are calling the trad wife content? How do you see that playing a part in building that more prosperous future?
Um, I mean, it's more. I guess it really depends on what we would say. What does prosperity mean? So, is that money or is it something else? Because if you're doing everything yourself, you feel a lot more, I guess, fulfilled. So that could be what prosperity is. So that's how I would view it, is because I'm creating so much more just through that creativity. I have a creative outlet. I feel like I'm a lot more prosperous, even though maybe materialistically that doesn't mean anything. I'm not generating any physical money or Bitcoin off of that.
That's because
Um,
you're not using Nostr yet. We're gonna get you
I
there.
well, I have the account. I have the wallet.
For
I just
listeners, I've been harassing Olivia to get more into Nostr for a while because this is so perfect for you, and I've just become a total shill for Nostr because it gives you a place. I'm just going to give you the case right now. This is
yep.
for
Okay,
everyone listening. If you're thinking about this and you're thinking about doing more content and just producing things that interest you, this really ties it all together. I talked earlier about how I really think Bitcoin is not only helping us get to a better world in the first place because it's pushing out this terrible fiat currency standard that is robbing from everybody and sucking away their life force and their artistic outlets and their ability to be fully human. But Nostr is a social media protocol which has Bitcoin native, so you send and receive Bitcoin easily, and so when I post on there, I receive Bitcoin for my post. People are very active and they're sending Bitcoin around. So the first notifications I see on my phone every morning are just like a list of people sending me sats for my memes that I posted the day before. And so it gives people a place to really be their weird selves. There's no algorithm there either. So you can really be as weird as you want to, and people appreciate you for it. And so I know that you made an account. I'm still going to keep bugging you because I think that you will thrive so hard if that becomes like me. It's become my main, my number one, and because I'm actually getting paid for it, and I know that I can't be banned. And you and I both know there are a lot of topics that we want to just scream from the rooftops that aren't accepted by these traditional, these legacy apps. This gives us a place to do that. And so I will always throw in some shilling for Nostr whenever I can.
okay, fine. I'll start. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. I have it. I have the account. It's all set up. I just haven't taken the time to actually post anything yet, so I'll do that.
You know who's been all over it and loving it for the last several weeks? Ken Berry.
I know. I saw that he made an
It's
account too.
amazing.
So
He's
okay.
on there every day now, and he's going hard too. He's using it correctly. He is posting like all the controversial, like just fire that's been inside of him for all. You can feel it. Like he's had to censor himself because he has like over 3 million followers on YouTube and hundreds of thousands of followers everywhere else. So he is always walking on pins and needles. That's a huge cost of loss if you ever were to get banned or censored. And so he finally has this place where you can't get banned or censored. There's no CEO or censoring team or anything. It's a protocol like email. And he's going super hard. He's posting the most like toxic things I've ever seen come out of Ken Berry's mouth, and I love it. It's amazing. It's beautiful. I highly recommend just go and scroll through Ken Berry's feed, and you will see like a perfect example of like how this is freeing for the mind as much as it is as a new income stream, and it's amazing. I love watching him go through the rabbit hole.
Okay, okay. I'll have to go just for that because I've met him in person a couple times and he seems like very sweet and kind of low key. So just to go see that would be hilarious. Fine.
Yes,
Okay.
you'll see the other side of Ken Berry, and I love every single side of Ken Berry. He's such a great dude. I got to meet him in Nashville at the Bitcoin conference very briefly. There was like this big the Beef Initiative had their Cattleman's Feast there, and a bunch of Sean Baker was there, Ken Berry was there. A lot of the big carnivore names came for that as well. So it was really cool. There's going to be increasing meshing of the carnivore world and the Bitcoin world, and I'm trying to be a bridge for that and get more of those people on board. And having Ken Berry on Nostr now, he's super big on the Bitcoin, which I didn't even know in the first place. So like now that he's over there, he's talking about Bitcoin all the time, how much he thinks it's going to change everything. And I think that he's sort of still tiptoeing around that on his other channels, but it's happening. Oh, I also went on Anthony Chafee's show a few weeks ago. I'm not sure when he was posting that, but I basically just ranted about Bitcoin for an hour. So We're gonna make this happen. We're gonna make the Bitcoin carnivore world together, or die trying. It's gonna be beautiful. I can't
Yeah,
wait.
well, it's already kind of a thing because every single Bitcoiner I've met, or someone who's at least in like the crypto space and maybe not a Bitcoin purist, they're like either hardcore carnivore or animal based or something. It's just I don't know if all of them are actually just talking about it. So it would just be getting them to actually talk about it, which they would do if it's not on a censored platform.
So what I've found from spending quite a bit of time in both of these worlds is that a lot of Bitcoiners become carnivores, but there aren't that many carnivores that become Bitcoiners.
Yeah.
It's kind of a one-way stream right now, and there just needs to be more both directions. We need to get more carnivores into Bitcoin. Just need to realize why this internet money, this weird orange coin they keep seeing everywhere, is actually applicable to them. And I had a guy, I don't know if you know Texas Slim.
Oh
He's
yeah.
he does a lot of work helping farmers get connected to Bitcoin, farmers and ranchers, so they can accept Bitcoin in their business and be protected from inflation. And it's helping them all over the country and beyond the country. They're even going international. So it's really in just like everyone else, it just helps protect your savings from government money printing, like I was talking about earlier. On an individual level, that's extremely good for you, not just financially, of course, but also mentally, because it allows you to actually plan for the future more. You know that you have a slice of that 21 million coin pie that will be the same percentage of the total supply forever. And people get too caught up looking at the up and down line of the price chart, but that's just measuring Bitcoin in fiat dollars. It's
Mm-hmm.
measured in dollars, so of course it's going to be volatile. A lot of people don't understand that the dollar is very volatile. So the denominator they're looking at on that screen is not stable. So Bitcoin is much more stable than dollars. If you actually look at how the protocol operates and how it functions, every 10 minutes there's a new block, and there's a supply cap that ends. And as the demand continues to go up, supply does not go up. So at some point or another, there's going to be a moment where everyone says, "Oh crap, there's no more Bitcoin left," and then the price just goes straight up because the supply shock begins, and there's not enough Bitcoin for everyone in the world. So it's just going to be a complete flood into this new form of money that I like to just refer to as digital gold. It's similar to gold, where gold in the past, as we talk about all this beautiful architecture in these eras that had so much more culture, a big reason was because people had money that held value, and they were able to save in something that actually gained or at least held its value. And now we have a new one. It's super awesome. More people need to learn about Bitcoin. I just think it's a huge deal, and I'm really excited for more people to be learning about it.
Yeah, I think at least I found with myself learning about it and then other people that I try explaining it to, there's just so many different pieces to it, and there's not like one place that you can send them to, which just explains it very simply as to why it works and why you should invest in it. I think that would just be like the main reason as to maybe why like people, even though they're seeing they need to decentralize like the butcher plants, like where they process meat or something, they can't have that as a centralized system as part of the government. They're not quite piecing together that maybe that's the same with money, the money system. So if there were somehow like a not a platform, but just like a one place direction where you can send people to, I think that might make a difference. But yeah, I don't know what the
My
solution.
podcast.
Your
No, I'm
podcast.
just kidding. Go to the Bitcoin Standard. That's better. So the book is the Bitcoin Standard. That is, you have to read that. It will change your life. This book breaks it down so beautifully and just sort of goes through each aspect of society and talks about how the money is what's changing it. And art is such a big one. And only the very end of the book actually talks about Bitcoin. The majority of the book is just walking you through the history of how money has changed and how society really changes along with the money. But it's really the money changing that changes society and changes people. And it's a fascinating rabbit hole. That's one I'd love for you to explore more as you are looking for new things to dive into. I think that would be incredible for you because you are very much a Bitcoiner. I can tell, and we need you on the Bitcoin team.
Yeah, I'm a Bitcoiner. I just yeah, I mean I yeah. I'm really into. I just haven't spent the time to actually like read a proper book. I just listen to a lot of the podcasts or like videos on it. But yeah, I'll have to check that out. See if there's an audiobook for it.
It's also there's definitely an audiobook, and the author Saifedean Ammous frequently posts like, hey, this is for free online as well. Like there are people that have pirated it and put it on like this pirated site, and he's the coolest dude ever. He's like, yeah, if you can't afford it, just go please read it here, like free marketing for me. Just go enjoy the book. Like I want people to read this book. So I'll see if I can find that link. It's been a while, but I can put that in the show notes for people that just want to get reading. Olivia, where can people find you and continue following your beautiful journey of learning and health and changing the world?
Yeah, I'm on everything, including Primal, the Nostr social media app, at Olivia, spelled OLYVEYA. Yeah.
Wonderful. I am so happy we got to have this chaotic, all over the place conversation. Sometimes that's how it goes, and it's wonderful. I love it. It's like a true chat with a friend. So I really, really appreciate you taking the time with me, and lots to continue digging into on the social media side. I'm sure we'll be able to chat again in the future, and there'll be more to talk about. There's a lot of things that I have on my notepad here that we could have brought up, but it would just bring up like a whole hour of digging. And we will be together again, my friend.
Yes, thank you so much for having me on. This is
Awesome.
great.
Have a great week.
Thanks, you too.